Hey, English class, we're going to be talking about MLA format today. I know that this is review for most of you, so I'll introduce some ideas, but mainly do some review, help make sure that we're all on the same page. The learning targets for today's class: I can adhere to specific rules and guidelines and demonstrate attention to detail. So the first question that I'll ask, an opening question, why are formats important? A reasonable question. Why do we do formats at all? I get that question. I understand it. So just take a second and maybe think through. Is there a good reason why we do formats? Is there a good reason why we're doing MLA format? Go ahead. What I'm going to propose is that everything has a format. Take a look at a keyboard, for example. On every keyboard, the keys are formatted in a certain way. And imagine how confusing it would be if every computer you worked with or got, the keys were in a different format or order. They're all over the place. That'd be terrible. Google Drive, or just all the Google Docs and all that, those all have a format to it. They all work in the same way. No matter what computer you're on, no matter how many different documents you open, they all function the same way. Your phones, they have a format to it, right? Every phone that you interact with more or less operates in the same general way. And so when you hold a phone, you know what to do with it once you understand the basic premise. Or look at Wikipedia, something that I use quite a bit, maybe you use quite a bit. It's a great resource, but it's all formatted in very, very similar ways. If you go to any Wikipedia page about a person, there's always going to be the biographical information on the left. There's going to be the table of contents there that you can click on. There will be a little introduction. It's all formatted in the exact same way. Imagine if every single Wikipedia article you went to about a person was formatted differently, right? You had to hunt and search all over the place to try and find information, instead of knowing every time I go to a Wikipedia article about a person, I can find this information here, and so on. Everything has a format just about. They make things easier to use. Simply put, formats just make things easier. And you might feel like you're being crammed into this box and you have to fit into this format. And you kind of do, I'll admit that, but they make things easier. They save you time, because rather than having to decide, I'm going to put this here and this here and this here, you just do it the same way every time. This allows you to actually focus on your work and your content, not formatting. You put it in this format every single time. That makes my life easier. As I read 100 documents, I know I'm going to find this information here, and this information here. It makes your job easier, because every time you open a document, you just do the same thing every time. Then you can actually focus on your work. So in the academic world especially, formatting is just really helpful, frankly. So why MLA specifically? Typically, though, MLA is the standard for arts and the humanities, which includes English, but other disciplines and other fields use different formatting styles. So social sciences, education tend to use APA. Sometimes science uses APA. Theology tends to use one called Chicago or Turabian. It just depends, but English tends to use MLA. That tends to be the standard. So this is the format MLA that we'll use throughout the course of the year. I'm going to tell you about your number one resource throughout the course of the year. It is Purdue Online Writing Lab. There's a link to it right there that you can click on the PowerPoint that I'll post. But the Purdue Online Writing Lab is your number one resource for all things MLA. It is fantastic. It's kind of like the gold standard for online resources. It has up-to-date correct information. You can trust it. We'll use this frequently, but I highly recommend bookmarking that main page to your Chromebook, because we'll use this resource very frequently. And it also helps you answer pretty much any question you could have. Here are some general MLA guidelines. This is by no means a complete or exhaustive list. These are just the most basic fundamental rules about creating a document in MLA format. So I'll ask you to pause it, quickly glance through it, and then we'll move on. Okay, so unless specifically noted otherwise, assume that every single document you create for this course should be in MLA format. Every single one, every single time, unless I tell you otherwise. Now, if you're wondering, I haven't done this in a while, I don't know all the rules, I've created a little first page tutorial for you, and there's a lot more rules that come into play for different components of the writing process. But just about setting up an MLA formatted document, here's a first page tutorial on how to do that. If you click on that, it'll go step by step, do this, do this, do this, and you should be all set and good to go. That's it for this one, class. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.